This meeting is being recorded.
We are good to go.
Thank you, Jacob. Good evening, Mayor and Council. This is the January 10th, 2022 Council briefing. We have 4 items for presentation on our agenda tonight. The first one being a presentation from the American Flood Coalition, something that was requested by our City Council a couple of months ago. We do have several representatives from that organization on the Zoom call with us tonight. And I'm going to turn it over to Anna Baker with American Flood Coalition, and she will lead us through their presentation and any questions that the council might have. So with that, Anna, the floor is yours.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Yes, there are 4 of us from the American Flood Coalition speaking with you today. 3 from the still somewhat snowy Washington, D.C. area and 1 from Florida. I'm the Senior Outreach Director for AFC. I will pass it to Kate, our Florida Director, just to briefly introduce herself, and then Rolando, and then Liz, who will be starting our briefing. So Kate, I'll pass it over to you.
Thank you, Anna. Hi, Kate Wessner. I am the Florida Director for the American Flood Coalition. I look forward to this presentation today and getting to work with you. I'll pass it to you, Liz.
Wonderful. Thank you, Kate, and thank you all. I hope you can see my screen with the slides. If I can get a thumbs up from someone, if we're good to go on the slides. Excellent. So my name is Liz Casson, and I'm a Senior Outreach Associate with the American Flood Coalition, primarily focusing on outreach efforts and supporting our work in Texas and in Florida. And as Kate said, and as Anna said, really excited to be with you all this evening to share a little bit more about the American Flood Coalition and some of our work in Florida. So I will just jump right in. And the American Flood Coalition, we are a national nonpartisan nonprofit that is dedicated to advocating and advancing national solutions to address flooding and sea level rise. And you'll see here our membership consists of elected officials at the local, county, and state levels, cities and counties. We recognize members of Congress as federal champions, and we also have businesses, civic groups, military groups, and academic institutions as part of our coalition's membership. And we, across the country, we have over 280 members spanning 21 states, with a good majority of our members coming from the state of Florida. And you'll see where most of our members are concentrated on the left-hand side of this slide, with most of our membership, of course, in Florida, and then in states like Texas, both North and South Carolinas, Virginia, and in New York. And on the right-hand side, you'll see a more specific breakdown of where our membership in Florida falls into, which kind of category and the types of members that we have. So we recognize 11 federal champions across the state for their support and engagement on addressing flooding and sea level rise at the federal level. We also have over 60 cities and counties that are members of the coalition, 21 elected officials, 18 business groups, 1 military group, and 2 civic organizations. And membership with the American Flood Coalition is free, and it's relatively easy to join. For individual elected officials that choose to become members of the coalition, it's a very simple, yes, I'd like to be a member of the coalition. And for cities and counties and other municipal entities that are interested in joining the coalition, they can really do so in a number of different ways. Cities and counties can join either by an executive decision, they can join by a voice vote during a council meeting or a commission meeting, or by passing a resolution that says that they would like to join the coalition. And for cities that choose to pass a resolution, we have a generic draft resolution and other informational materials about the coalition. That's all on our website that I believe we have shared with you all before, but we can certainly share that again with you following our presentation. And you'll also see the link that is at the bottom of this slide here. And ultimately, cities and counties that do choose to join the coalition can really do so in whatever manner is most comfortable and makes the most sense for their particular community. And just to dig a little bit deeper into some of our membership and our work in Northeast Florida, you'll see just a very quick snapshot. This doesn't capture all of our members in the region, but this is a really good example of some of the elected officials and cities and towns that have joined the coalition. And then we also have 3 federal champions from the region, again, really kind of reflecting the bipartisan nature of our work. And to give a little bit more context and some concrete examples of some of the work that the Flood Coalition has done in the area, I will pass it over to Anna. So Anna, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Liz. Yeah, so to give a picture of our recent engagements with folks from your region, I just would love to give a short list. So we joined a local Beaches Watch meeting in September this past fall virtually, and we're really pleased to speak with that group, with Council Member Golding as part of that group or as a participant in that discussion as well. We talked about local resilience examples and actions, and to participate in a really lively discussion with them. Over the past year or so, we also took part in briefings with the Jacksonville Resiliency Special Committee during the development of their report on resilience to flooding and sea level rise that came out last year. In 2019, Mayor Brown of Neptune Beach served as a speaker in a briefing to Congress here in Washington, D.C. as part of our Mayor's Summit that year, where we invited a group of about 20 mayors from across Florida to come to DC and highlight the importance of flood issues and solutions, and to share these stories with the Florida congressional delegation. And our last in-person visit we made to your area was in early 2020, where we got to meet with elected leaders from Neptune Beach and Atlantic Beach. And this included participating in a meeting with local citizens who live along the Intracoastal Waterway to discuss not only the beach side, but also the more back bay elements of flood risk and flood adaptation. So those are just a few examples, and we're so, again, just pleased to be connecting with you all today and to be sharing more information about the engagement we've had thus far, and to talk about ways we can engage further.
Great, thank you so much, Anna. And like we said, the American Flood Coalition's mission is really laser focused on flooding and sea level rise. And we look to proactively address the growing threat of stronger storms and higher seas and more frequent flooding by advocating for smarter planning and investments to help keep our communities safe, to help protect our local economies and ensure that our military installations are able to be ready and deployed at 365 days a year, which kind of leads me into our big 4 policy pillars that really kind of help guide our engagement at the local, county, state, and federal level. First, we look at ways that we can support the economy and invest in infrastructure that boosts local economies and creates jobs. We also look at ways to support communities and proactively plan to help keep our communities safe in the face of flooding events. And then we also look at ways that communities can rebuild and make sure that they are protected from future flood events. And then the last one, again, I mentioned, is making sure that our military installations have the tools necessary to make sure that they are ready to be deployed 365 days a year. And so, like I said earlier, membership with the American Flood Coalition is free and it's not legally binding. And we are completely funded through institutional and philanthropic donors, which does allow us to not charge a membership fee. And we work with our members in a number of different ways, just to touch on a few here. Anna mentioned our Mayor's Summit from 2019. We really seek to develop a network of leaders on flood issues from across the country, and to be able to facilitate introductions, to share best practices and strategies for planning on flood resilience. We've also supported a number of local resilience pilots, some in Florida and then others in North Carolina and Virginia. We also provide a platform for advocacy and education at the federal level, really helping to amplify and raise the importance of these issues. Again, we also provide different tools for communicating about flood impacts in a particular community, being able to support our local members and highlighting, their community's flood risk and, supporting them through, data points or talking points. And lastly, we develop educational guides and resources for our members to help understand the more complex elements of flooding and sea level rise, and help them understand what strategies they might be able to implement in their communities. And that leads me to, I'll just touch on two of our resources very briefly that might be of interest. The first is our Adaptation for All guide, which we developed in concert with the Embassy of the Netherlands. And this outlines a number of different resilience strategies for communities that are looking to tackle flooding and sea level rise in their community. And the guide looks at a number of different approaches and really breaks it down by cost and benefit and a number of other considerations to help leaders identify which resilience strategy would be best suited for their community. And then the second resource I'll touch on is our Flood Funding Finder. And this is an interactive tool on our website that helps folks navigate the various different federal grant opportunities and really focus in based on a number of filters and characteristics, which federal grant would be best suited for a flooding project. So those are just two resources that I'll mention. There's a number of other resources on our website that we're happy to share following our presentation here. But with that, I will just close and just wanted to, of course, thank you all again for the opportunity to allow us to present. We are happy to field any questions right now. And of course, please don't hesitate to reach out to us over email if there are any lingering questions after our presentation. But I will open it up to any questions, or Kate or Anna, if there's anything else that you would like to jump in with.
Thank you, Liz, and thank you, Anna. Waiting to see if any of our council members have questions, if they're going to raise their hands on Zoom. Councilmember Meza.
I want to be a member. Can I join?
Sure, absolutely. We can follow up over email and certainly get that going, but absolutely.
All right, perfect.
Councilor Golding, followed by Councilor Jansen.
I just want to put out there that I would like for the city council to consider the city of Jacksonville Beach joining as a city member. So just want to put that out there for discussion.
Councilor Jansen.
Yeah, just a quick question. It seems like a lot of that was pre-flooding prevention type stuff or funding and resources. Are there any resources for post-flooding situations? Have you dealt with that, or do you even deal with something like that? Whoever can best answer that.
Yes, one of the resources we're happy to pass along, we have a dual disaster guide that focuses on, we developed this right as COVID first emerged and communities were facing the dual challenge of dealing with the pandemic and with post-flooding response efforts simultaneously. So you're correct, we do engage mostly in the pre-disaster planning side of things, but we certainly do touch the post-flood response and recovery side as well. And we're very familiar, and we hear from a lot of our local partners and members how much of an integrated cycle that really becomes, where some of the funding that's invested during a flood recovery effort can lead to pre-disaster adaptation that can improve resilience over the long run as well. So
thank you.
You're welcome.
Councilor Golding.
Yeah, one thing I wanted to follow up on, I actually was able to attend that meeting that Anna was talking about that was held in Neptune Beach. It was off the ICW. There's some residents that are actually, their homes are on Shadow Lane, which is over there off of Seagate, and they're seeing rising water levels in their area. And I don't know if any of you have spoken to any citizens, but over off of Lakeside Drive and that area, I've had several citizens contact me about the rising water levels that they're seeing. So this is definitely something that's being seen by our citizens. And I just think it would be good for us to proactively consider a membership in this organization so that we can access the resources that they have, but also hopefully benefit from any other collaborations or partnerships that they could help connect us with.
Councilor Dumont.
Thank you. I concur with what Sandy said. I hear from people in the sanctuary a lot about flooding, and I have for years. And so this is an issue for people specifically on the west side of the island here. So I would like to see if we have agreement on council for the city to look at developing a resolution and become a member of the Flood Association. I think it's good for the city. It's good for a lot of the people specifically on that west side. And it's one more feather in our cap that we're trying to be environmentally conscious, which is part of the strategic plan.
Now that I can see all of our council members, is there a consensus to put an item on for consideration of being members? Excellent.
Yes.
That's the direction I was looking for. Any other questions or comments from council? Councilor Golding.
I just want to thank Anna and Rolando and Kate and Liz. Thank you all for joining us tonight and for your presentation, and certainly appreciate your joining us.
Yes, thank you all, and we will be in touch with you.
Thank you all so much, Mayor Hoffman and members of the council. It's just really a pleasure to be here, and we look forward to following up further.
Okay.
Enjoy your warm weather down there.
We will, don't worry. With
All
that
right,
said,
Mayor.
I think we're ready to move on to our next topic on the agenda, which would be a CRA quarterly report. Planning and Development Director Heather Ireland. With that, I will turn the floor over to her.
Great, thank you, Mike. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Happy New Year, everybody. Hope you all had a good vacation. I haven't seen many of you since then. Although, Sandy, I saw you walking last night. I rode my scooter past you. So this quarterly report is the second one that we have provided to you guys. The first one was in October. And just want to remind everybody, it's a really high-level view of some of the topics that the CRA has been discussing at their monthly meetings and at their workshops. So it is brief. I do encourage all of you to tune into the meetings on the city's YouTube channel, either live or at your convenience. And please note that on the agenda in the packet, there's a very detailed multi-page staff report that Taylor does a fantastic job putting together. It lists out every project that's active or wrapping up, the status, and a whole bunch of other stuff. So I really encourage you guys to take a look at that staff report. It probably answers a lot of questions you might have. So we're working on updating that document right now for the meeting in January, which is on the 24th. So we'll have a lot more information to share in that agenda as to how the status of different projects and questions that the CRA has on stuff. So just some highlights of some things over the last couple of meetings. Funding renovations to the Seawalk Pavilion was something that came up as a priority from Parks and Rec. They've also met several times to discuss different downtown projects based on the priorities that council has set. These things include, economic development and open space. And they've also discussed in past meetings in the last couple of months, revisiting the pier. And of course, we're waiting for the actual pier to be finished before we can talk about the pier parking lot and moving forward with that. But we hope to start in the spring with getting some final plans out there. Revisiting the Latham Plaza and also the parking lot adjacent to that. They've discussed things like periodic closing of first streets, more outdoor dining in the downtown area. And as far as the South End goes, we're actually working on right now with our consultant to update the South End plan. So that will be forthcoming to everyone. And just some other things that staff's been working on are the incentive programs, the art master plan, comprehensive maintenance plan for both districts, a marketing strategy, and we're also looking to get some new banners for our streetlights that we have on 3rd Street. So again, this is a really high level snapshot of everything that's going on. I'm happy to answer questions that you might have, but again, I do encourage you to take a look at that agenda packet when it comes out either this Friday or first of next week. It'll give you a lot more details on everything that's going on. We're working on getting status updates on all the projects that are active right now, and that'll all be in the detailed monthly staff report. So happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Heather. And we'll kick it over to Councilor Nichols first.
Hey, Heather. Happy New Year, by the way. Just wanted your opinion. I keep hearing that the CRA is continuing to get bogged down on small details and we're still not getting the move forward. We discussed 2 years ago that we were going to give them a year or so, and granted there was COVID and stuff, but I just want your opinion on, do you feel like the CRA is following our council's direction on the topics that they should be considering? And is this moving forward at a rate that you're comfortable with, or do you think that we should be moving forward faster?
Well, I will say, and when you see the agenda come out for the January meeting, it is jam-packed. I'm actually a little worried we're going to go over our time because we just have so many things that they've asked us to either focus on, address, or allow them the opportunity to discuss. So it is a really heavy agenda. I do think that we're working very fast. There's just a lot of things going on kind of all at the same time. So I do think that good progress is being made and we are moving forward with a lot of these things. We're getting closer and closer to, pushing out incentives, to talking about different P3 projects, and hopefully very soon implementing that art master plan. We hope to really kick that off in the spring. So just again, these things take time, and we do have a lot of items on the agenda that kind of steer off into other topics sometimes, but we are making some good progress, I believe.
Is there any way to slow down that waste or that effort that I consider wasted on the smaller issues that are driving into different directions? Is that, can the board leader kind of, put an end to, like, if we're going down a road, say, hey, we're going to stop here. Let's go back. Let's focus on really what the council is wanting us to do.
And again, that's part of why we put together such a detailed staff report to try to cover every single thing that's going on, whether it's a small maintenance issue or a big stormwater drainage project. And every meeting we seem to add something new to the staff report. And our goal with that is really to give as much information as possible so that questions about those things will come up less and less at future meetings. We really want to get that information out there so we can focus on some of the bigger things and move forward.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
And I'd like to do just a little bit of a follow-up to that, just as a reminder. The CRA board is appointed by the city council, and you've given them some clear direction on what you'd like to see them achieve. All of the meetings are available online. The agendas are available, as Heather indicated. I'm not sure if staff should really be making the determination of whether or not the board is meeting your needs with the delegation of authority that you have placed in them. If you all watch those meetings or you don't feel that they're achieving the milestones that you've set out for them, then that would be at your discretion to make any changes or adjustments. But I know that Heather and her staff with Taylor and some of our outside consultants are working diligently to try to keep them focused and try to keep them pointed in the right direction. But ultimately, it's the 7 of you to decide whether or not that they're actually meeting your directives that you've given to them.
Thank you, Mike.
Mayor Hoffman.
So, and I agree. I encourage everybody to watch or attend those meetings on occasions. And I will say they do have meetings, but they also have workshops, which are a little more of a free form discussion. I'm sorry about the dog. She was barking and I don't know why. And it's the only way to make her stop. I did want to ask about, and I can appreciate the putting together the comprehensive maintenance plan and to evaluate a full year of both of our districts before we put together kind of that schedule. When do we hit 12 months, and at what point do we expect to start seeing some of those more cosmetic and aesthetic things that are really what are dragging down a lot of our meetings start to be improved in terms of the downtown in particular?
Sure, that's a great question. So Taylor started in April of last year, and I think she started putting that together in August. So we're not quite there, but I do think we have a good idea of, at least for a few seasons, what we need to do when. And the Parks and Rec Department has been fixing the irrigation both in downtown and in the South End district. So obviously now is not the time to plant flowers. So now is the time to fix the irrigation so we can plant the flowers. So there's just we don't want to put one thing before the other, plant things, and then they're going to die because the irrigation is all broken. So that's part of that puzzle too. Once that all gets fixed and we can plant things and start going methodically through each part of downtown specifically and replanting those plants, I think that will make a lot of improvement as well. I know there's been a lot of discussion about the different color of mulch, which we all know is, something we don't want. We want to fix that. Yes, there are different colors of mulch. So again, it's a process we have to follow in a logical order. So getting everything fixed was step number one. They are trimming the trees and trying to keep things that are out there now kept up a little better than before. So there's also been some plantings going on in the South End, and then around the park, we're waiting for the playground to get finished, and then you'll see some new landscaping going up around there. So I would say by this summer, we'll have a good handle on how much we need to do, when, and what those costs are, so we can lay that out for a full year moving forward.
Councilor Jansen.
Happy New Year, Heather. Just real quick question, clarify my understanding. That first bullet point under staff projects, completed incentive survey, did you say that was coming out on the report on Friday, or is that something in the future?
It will be on the January agenda. So there's a whole separate report on the summary of the survey. We only got about a 5% response rate, but I guess I'll take it. And so there'll be some detailed information in the memo regarding the survey and then what our recommended incentive programs are. So you'll see that on the next agenda.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Heather while you've got her on the line related to CRA updates? Seeing none, we'll close out item B and we'll move on to item C, Land Development Code parking standards. So this item was a future briefing topic from a couple months ago where the council wanted to have a discussion about the parking standards that we have related to townhouse development. With that, I'll turn it over to Heather again to talk a little bit about the memo and information that she's provided with you.
Great, thank you, Mike. So we provided with some information regarding our current parking standards based on that discussion we had. Really was in regards to townhouses and the construction of new townhouses, and was the current parking standard for them adequate. So we've provided you with a couple of things. One is what our current parking requirement for new construction is. And right now for all residential, single family, mobile home, 2-family townhouse and multifamily dwelling, 2 parking spaces per unit. There are different standards for more group housing and commercial, such as hotels and motels. The next thing we did was research what other communities have in regards to their parking standard for townhouses. So we looked at our immediate neighbors and then a little bit down the coast. And for the most part, it was pretty consistent, 2 parking spaces per dwelling unit. Not for every different type of dwelling unit, single family, duplex, townhouse. There are a few exceptions, as you'll see on page 2. For example, Palm Beach has a little bit different of a standard. And then Jacksonville actually requires some guest parking for townhouses. So I know that the request was specifically for this use. While staff was reviewing this particular topic, we've identified a lot of other areas in our parking and loading standards that we know are deficient and we would like to update. There are uses that we have in Jacksonville Beach that there is no parking standard for, and we have to apply something that isn't really relevant to that use. Dog kennels is a perfect example. So as we were reviewing this, we really think that yes, we agree there needs to be some changes to the entire parking and loading standards, but we are hesitant to do that in a vacuum of not reviewing the whole land development code. And we would certainly like to make that part of that process when we get to that, hopefully at the end of this year, beginning of the next fiscal year. So I'm happy to answer any questions that you guys have about our parking standards or the research that we did. But my recommendation is to kind of hold off on any standards that just focus on one thing outside of looking at the entire code as a whole and making comprehensive changes to pretty much all of it.
I'm not seeing any hands raised. There's one. Councilor Stokes.
I guess somebody's got to go first. I can't believe I'm saying this, but I like Jacksonville's their standard of the guest space for every 3. I think that is kind of pragmatic thinking. I don't think it's a huge undue burden on any sort of development. And yeah, I was kind of shocked that was in Jacksonville's code, but I liked it. I agree with staff that there are a lot of parking standards that do need revision. And so I'm excited that we're tackling the LDC this year. And we'll be looking at all those. And, I would lean towards staff and administrative's recommendation of doing it all in one whole update instead of piecemeal. But obviously, we'll go with consensus of the council as a whole and not just my personal recommendation.
Councilor Golding.
So in thinking about this is more than a townhome issue, really. And I don't think it's, for example, this could be an issue for single family homes where you've got 3-bedroom, for example, 3-bedroom, 2-bath home, and you've got 3 college students living there, and they have girlfriends. So now you've got 6 cars that are trying to park at a single family home that maybe has space for 3 cars, maybe if you're lucky. And in my neighborhood alone, there's a property that is owned, so it's not rented. So I was trying to think about this, is this an issue that, okay, it has to do with tenants, so you could have multiple tenants that are not, members of the same family. But, there's a home in my neighborhood that has 3 young ladies that live in it, and they each have boyfriends, and there's typically 5 cars on the street on any given day, and 1 car in the driveway, and no car in the garage. So, it's an issue that goes broader than the townhomes, but I think the townhomes, really kind of brought it to our attention because it's something that, seems to be happening in areas where we had single family originally, and now you've got multifamily, and that tends to maybe make it a little more obvious and more exacerbated. But so I appreciate the fact that we probably need to look at this in a more holistic, look at everything as opposed to just the townhomes. but I just wanted to mention to everyone the things that I've seen, because I do believe it does go beyond the townhomes, and I don't know what the solution is.
Councilor Dumont.
Thank you. I agree with Sandy. It's not necessarily just a townhome issue, but that really did bring it to the fore. Parking standards of 2 per unit are antiquated, because it's back when they used to think dad had a car to go to work, and mom would maybe need a car to put around to get her daily things done. If we look back at when we started thinking about 2 cars per unit, that was more the mindset. Only the 2 adults drive, they have kids, and eventually the kids they'll borrow the parents' car if they're going to drive anywhere. And we just don't live like that anymore. So when we are reviewing how we want to try and address this, we might want to think about things like tying it to the number of bedrooms, or something like that, regardless of the type of unit it is. I saw in here that if it's a larger unit over 3,000 square feet, they have to have 3 parking spaces. So thinking beyond just a unit as like a unit being a 1-bedroom efficiency or house, or 1 unit being an 8-bedroom, 7-bath luxury home. Both need 2 parking spots. So I think we really need to think a lot deeper about this, because it's impacting not just townhome areas, but neighborhoods. If you drive down 16th Avenue South, the closer you get towards South Beach Parkway, you just see cars. It's just a parking lot going down 16th Avenue South after about 6th Street. And so we deal with it here all the time.
Councilor Jansen.
Yeah, so I would tend to agree with council members Dumont and Golding to an extent, but also there being on the Board of Adjustments, there's some considerations when you start thinking about that. And I know we have to bring these all out in the totality of circumstances, but a lot of our properties, a greater portion of our properties on the RS1, as the standard is set right now, would never pass for additional parking spaces on the property because of the permeable ground coverage set at 35%. So it's a bigger problem that I think meets the eye. That's a consideration we got to have when we're talking about either increasing parking spaces or making a demand for guest parking spaces, which I agree with Council Member Stokes. I think that's a fantastic idea. Some family members have some condos in Jacksonville, and they do have guest parking. If they didn't have it, we'd have a heck of a situation. But as everybody knows, property is a premium here in Jacksonville Beach, and it's not as simple as add spaces. So just food for thought.
Councilor Dumont.
Thank you. And that's why I'm not going to say no. We really need to address this right now. It's because if you want to look at it holistically, I'm taking it when you're not just holding it off so we can just do the land parking issue. Parking issue is going to be done with everything else in the LDC, and we have to be very conscious of how a change in one will impact the others. And so that's why I'm guessing staff is saying we'd rather do it holistically than just look at parking and deal with that, and then we'll deal with any issues that potentially happen in the future. And so that's why I support what staff is asking for, in the expectation that in the long term we will find ways to mitigate a lot of these issues.
We will hopefully find ways to mitigate these issues. I think if you
we will find ways to mitigate these issues. Positive.
Yeah, I know one of the things that Heather and I had discussed when she was putting this together, because she had brought up a good point in her memo, and that is if the parking requirements are changed right now, then that means any townhouse property, if you did it just for townhouses, you could have a slew of townhouses that immediately become non-conforming. And so that's a policy grade consideration that the council really needs to give to it, not just to change it going forward, but how does it affect all of the properties looking retrospectively as well. And that's something that has not been done from an analysis perspective. So if you were to say that, for every 2 townhouses, you need to have 1 guest parking space, then that means every townhouse development that's been built with multiple units, 3 or 4 to a package, all of those basically become non-conforming properties the way they're currently laid out. And so there needs to be consideration of how do you handle that in the event something happens to those properties. Councilmember Meza.
Yes, I agree with my colleagues here on everything just about, and very excited that we're finally looking into not just the parking, but the LDC, but just the food for thought in the future. Once we start doing this is obviously this is going to be long term, but I just want us to be proactive and not just thinking of 10 years that are coming up, but in the next 30, 40, 50 years where Jackson Beach will be. So I think, we want to make sure that we take care of our future residents here in Jacksonville Beach and businesses. But Dan Jansen said property is a premium right now. And I know the way the city layout is, it's not really parking friendly on the residents here on the streets. But yeah, that's all. Thank you.
Any other council members have questions for Heather on this topic? The consensus I think I'm hearing is to put a big red flag next to the issue of parking. And when we get to that in the LDC review, that will be looked at holistically across parking as well as the property uses. I see some heads nodding, so I'll take that as a yes. Thank you, Heather. With that, we will move on to item D, the city manager's annual performance. I know we have Kim Bennett, the Human Resources Director, on the line. And Mayor, I don't know who's supposed to be leading this particular item. So I don't know if the two of you spoke in advance or if it's something that I'll introduce.
We didn't, but let's see what Kim has to say.
Okay.
So can everyone hear me?
Mm-hmm.
I did actually prepare something to say based on what Ann talked about last time. So good evening, Mayor and Council, and congratulations, Mike, on your upcoming 3-year anniversary. If you recall from last year, it is part of the city manager's contract that his job performance be reviewed at least once annually during his anniversary month. So similar to last year, I sent out an evaluation form to the directors regarding the city manager's staffing and supervision. And I provided a summary of those results to you along with the memorandum that Mike had written. And just recently, I sent you the summary of the evaluations each of you completed. So based on the stipulations in Mike's contract, it states that the city council shall consider the results of his performance evaluation and guidelines applied to department heads in determining the amount of salary adjustment and benefit adjustment for the city manager. So the guidelines we use for all city employees, including department heads, is an increase of between 2 to 3%, 2% being for average, 2.5% for above average, and 3% for excellent. So once you've determined the salary adjustment, I can put this on the council meeting agenda for January 18th. So before I turn it over for all of you to talk about, do you have any questions for me? I guess not. So if the mayor and the council want to discuss the city manager's performance.
Councilor Dumont has her hand raised.
Okay.
Thank you. Not related to the increase or anything, but the contract wording itself. We ran into this last year when 3 of the council members were brand new. And so they had no groundwork to really give him a useful and informative evaluation, which puts Mike at a disservice. So included in all of this, I'd like to add into the amend the contract. So instead of within the first month of hire, the contract would be, instead of for a 12-month period, it would be for about an 18-month period, to give any new council members who come in December some experience and get their footing, so they can actually give him a recommendation that will be helpful for him to meet their needs for the next 3.5 years. Then obviously that's something that would council would have to think is a good idea, as well as Mike, because it would be the changing of his contract.
Councilor Jansen?
Would that be pushing off the timing of his raise? Is that what you're saying?
Not this one, probably the next one. This raise would end up coming in at the conclusion of last year, which would be now. So the next raise would be at the conclusion of the next contract, which I propose be 18 months out instead of the 12. And it really, in my view, it really benefits him, because he gets a better understanding of the council members, and the council members understand how he does business and how he interacts with us. Because right now, the new people come on, they're like, I don't know, he seems nice. We'll just say he's excellent.
Are we, so we're required to review his performance at least once annually? Does it have to coincide with his anniversary? Could we do performance reviews, say, in July? That would give the new council members 6 months, and then so it's like kind of like halfway through the year. That would be, to me, that would make more sense than trying to amend a contract, unless there's a stipulation that it has to be done right before his anniversary. Because if say Mike was hired in June, then we would theoretically, based on this program, review him in like end of May, early June. So it just kind of, it's kind of like we just hired Mike at a bad time. Sorry, Mike, but he got hired at the wrong time of the year for new council members.
I can say that right now his contract does say that it needs to be once annually during his anniversary month.
Councilor Jansen and Councilor Nichols both have their hand raised.
My knee-jerk reaction to this is, this probably shouldn't be changed unless somewhere down the road we end up changing city managers. With the incoming of a new city manager, that might be the time to make a change as to when we do that. Three of us were faced with the situation that you explained, though I did have a lot of information provided to me from department heads and the feedback we got from HR, which really helped in my first annual evaluation. So I don't think it was that big of an issue at that time. I see your point, but I don't think that we should be changing it midstream. One thing that I experienced as a supervisor at JSO when I worked there is oftentimes we would pick up a detective that was, his annual eval was coming up within 2 months, and I've only had 2 months to work with him. So I kind of leaned back on the information that was provided to me in order to do an effective eval. And it's just, I think that's part of the way it is, the part of the life that you have to deal with. I mean, you have to, base it on the information that's provided to you. Now, making a change, like I said before, not to rerun that wheel, maybe with the incoming of a new city manager somewhere down the road, we can make that change. That's just my initial reaction.
Councilor Nichols.
Yeah, I don't really feel the need to change the time frame of it. I do think we can, on the survey, I do think we can add a line in there to let people, new council members, something, if you don't have it, if you don't feel like you have enough information in this area, not to score that area, and you do an average of the people that have been working with the city manager. And then, you know, the following time they can do it. If they feel like they have enough information, then they can go ahead and do it anyway. So I think that's probably the best way out of it, is just to, you know, give them an ability to opt out of certain areas.
Councilor Golding.
You know, I agree with Ms. Dumont though, because I hope that Mike will be with us for a long time. And so I would suspect that we will have more new council members coming on board in late November, early December, and we're going to run into this situation again. My thinking is, you know, if Mike were agreeable and we were to consider modifying the contract, there's nothing to prevent us from saying that his increase in June or July, whenever we do the review, would be higher, because we would be taking into account the additional time. You know, it's not been 12 months now, it's maybe been 18 months. So I personally don't see that should be limiting us, and it would at least, as Ms. Dumont said, give the new council members an opportunity to have some experience working with Mike and be able to provide some valuable input.
Mayor Hoffman.
I'm fine with leaving it where it is. If it were fewer than 7 of us, I think with 7 people doing the review, it's not like it's 1 or 2 people who are just trying to get their feet on the ground, but it will always be a group of people who have been here at least 2 years, with the addition of something less than, 4 or less new people. So I think it was Corey who said, if they're not comfortable filling something out, then they can just NA, and then the averages will be done out of 6 people or whatever the amount is, less than that of whoever fills out that section. So I'm fine with leaving it as it is. And I'm just really glad that we're finally at a point of doing regular annual evaluations of our city manager.
Councilor Jansen.
Yeah, the only thing I would add to that is, if we were to make that change, then the consideration of a retroactive pay going back those loss of 6 months or whatever the time you ever decided to do would be in effect. Though I tend to lean to not changing it at this point, but that's a consideration, is the retroactive portion of it.
Councilor Dumont.
Thank you. It's my nature to think about what's the worst that can happen. And Mayor Hoffman, if you did not run for mayor, we would have had 4 new people on council. So it can come down to a situation where you have 3 council people filling out evaluations based off of 2 years of experience. And that would be the worst case scenario. I'm not saying Mike, we're hoping you're here for a very long time, where we cycle through enough councils where this is the potential of happening. But this is something that I don't think it puts him in a good position, nor the city as a whole, because the city looks to us to make sure that we are, we have proper oversight of our employees, being Mike and Sandy. So, but I understand the hesitancy. I would say yes for the retroactive, but I would like to hear what Mike's opinion is on this, since this is really for him.
I don't think it's a problem the way it currently is. The issue you're referring to, as Councilor Jansen pointed out, is dealt with by all of our department directors and supervisory staff on an annual basis. They get promoted into a new position, they get hired into the organization, they have a new employee start, and they have to deal with the timeframes that are given to them and figure it out the best they can. So I know that it would be. Go ahead.
Sorry, I wanted to follow up on that with what Dan said as well, because Dan has a lot of experience in government. Department heads have a lot of experience in government. Chet and Fernando didn't have a lot of experience with the public sector. They have experience in the private sector, but not in the public, and it functions differently. So that is a concern. You get 4 new people who have no experience in government, never sat on a board or anything else. It's just new to them, and they just don't know where to go. That always gives me pause because that puts an undue amount of power in your hands. And some of us would say that we have seen that happen in the past. So that is something that we might want to think about.
Councilor Stokes, followed by Councilor Meza. Oh, just Councilor Stokes.
Oh, yeah, I mean, I can understand the concern, but I've got, it all depends on the person, right? I've got 7 department, I've been 7, I don't know how many department directors I have. Sorry, I should probably know. But I've got a lot of department directors. I've hired and fired department directors in the last 2 years. I mean, it's not, it's since I've been in a high level management role. So for me, a performance eval is nothing. I look to see, I let someone go because the staff was clueless underneath them. That's bad management. Hired somebody that the staff loves underneath them. That's good management. So, I do performance evaluations on my managers all the time. So even 2 months, I think even a year later, there's still information that I think could better influence an evaluation. I don't think we ever have a complete picture of a performance evaluation. It's your personal take. I mean, that's how I personally feel, because I've been in kind of what I've been doing for a little while, and one person feels completely one way and you can completely disagree, but that's we're all human, right? That's where this whole collective body comes together. It was definitely more difficult last year, but just like last year, I looked to what the department head said, and this year, and then also had another whole year of working. But I always think that there's never enough information, whether you're on the job 2 months or 14 months, there's always more information you could get to help better, do a performance eval, but you do it with what you got, and you put all the information you can together and do the score, whether it's 2 months or 14 months. And been doing it for my people and did it for Mike, and but that's my personal take. Just I'm different from somebody else. Somebody else could get on and have never done a performance eval before. I guess that can happen.
Councilor Meza.
Yeah, I don't see anything wrong with just doing your evaluation on your anniversary. I've done evaluations for the director of the library since I've been on the board. So the same thing I did with your evaluation and the director of the libraries, I asked questions to the staff, and I based the evaluation on that. And whatever experience I had with the director, I still give him an evaluation. The same thing that I did with you, Mike, last year. And I asked questions, and it wasn't my first time doing evaluations, but yeah, I think on your anniversary, we could do this. And I hope you're with us for a long time, Mike.
Thank you. Mayor Hoffman.
I was just going to jump in, since it seems like there's not a consensus to make this change, and transition to the discussion of the actual evaluation and potential merit increase. Is that okay with everybody? Okay. Kim, did you have anything else you wanted to say before we did that?
Nope, that was it.
Okay. So I just want to start off by thanking Mike and congratulations on your 3-year anniversary. Those of us who were paying attention or involved during the transition between our longtime city manager and a new city manager knew it could have gone several different ways, not all of them as successful as we've seen this transition, not only just with our city manager, but onboarding new department heads, bringing up and promoting from within, as we've seen, for example, in our planning department, establishing some new positions and just really poising us in a good position for the future. The department head feedback was all very useful and showed a lot of consistency, which is always nice to see, as well as the feedback from the council members. So I want to thank you guys all for taking the time to write some really thoughtful comments. And again, there was some consistency in praise, but also consistency in some of the things that we'd like for you to take a look at this year and going forward. So thank you for your service to our city and for continuing to really push us to the next level. And I would certainly support a 3% increase to your salary.
Where's the party, Mike?
What's that?
Where's the party?
Where's the party? Councilor Jansen, followed by Councilor Nichols.
Yes, I echo the same sentiments as the mayor. I support a 3% raise. I think you're doing a fantastic job. I'm proud to call you our city manager, and just keep up the great work. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Nichols, followed by Councilor Golden.
I concur. I appreciate your efforts, Mike, and just the morale of the city. Everybody I talked to just does not give me pause in giving you the compliments you deserve. And I would also support a 3% increase.
Councilor Golding.
Yes, thank you, Mike. Like everyone else has said, thank you for everything that you've been doing. You've done a great job in the 3 years you've been with us. Congratulations on your 3-year anniversary. I too would support a 3% increase for your 3-year anniversary. But I would like to ask you, Mike, based on the feedback that you got from us, are there any items that you would like to share with us that you that you're going to plan to focus on in the coming year based from our input?
The biggest thing I see here from consistency is with regards to, in other words, if there's anything that we should try to focus on a little more this upcoming year, it's with regards to community or citizen communication. And I know we've got a new website. I know we've got the monthly newsletter that goes out. With the website now kind of in the rear view mirror, that will give us an opportunity to focus on some other things, some of which will be that community connection that you're referring to. In February, we will be discussing at a council briefing the operational plan for the strategic plan. And you'll see that there are some areas of communication that are related within there that we have planned over the next couple of years, actually starting with the Citizens Information Academy this spring, to start having the members of our public be exposed to all facets of what we do in local government. But we are taking a look also with regards to not just communication with the residents and the business owners, but also working with our business owners to communicate with the visitors coming into our community on a short-term or temporary basis as well. And that's going to be a fun project because Jacob and I got to work on the scope of that particular project. And it involves all of our partners in the hotel and hospitality industries. So that's going to be a fun one. So if anything, that's probably the one that I saw the most consistency with regards to some thoughts of where we need to focus a little differently in the coming year. And I think we're prepared to make some strides in that particular arena. And I would like to reiterate that this is not a one-person job. I could not do what I do without the professionalism and competence of all the department directors and the staff underneath them. They are truly an excellent staff. They do a great job for the organization, for their individual departments, and they really do put the pride in EPIC, which is our core values, the EPIC team. They make my job look easy, and it's because of the dedication they have to what they do on a daily basis. So thank you for the feedback, and I appreciate it.
Just to clarify, I don't think anybody thinks your job is easy, Mike.
It's
But I agree with the awesome department heads that you have.
Can I just quickly, not raising my hand, but I just wanted to also, say thanks to Mike. It's been a lot of fun this year through the strategic plan. A lot that we've gotten to do as a group has been a lot of fun, and you've made it part of all that we've done. You've been a part of and made, I would say, your presence has made it enjoyable. On a lot that we've done. So I really appreciate that, because it could be, I know a lot of GMs and stuff that are dull, and it's not that. And so this is a really fun group, and you being a part of that group has been really well. So I just want to say that real quick as we conclude.
Thank you, Chet. And I'd like to tip my hat to the 7 of you as well, for as diverse backgrounds as you all have, and different interests with regards to what you want to see with the city, of where we go and how we do it. The fact is that the 7 of you, while you're independent in your own rights, you're all working very well together as a council. And I think it makes our briefings and our meetings go a lot smoother from that perspective. We're getting some good things done. We've got a lot more things to accomplish here this upcoming year. And I'm really happy to be working with the 7 of you in that area. Seeing no other hands on that, Kim, thank you for introducing the item. And with that, we will move on to item E, future briefing topics. I kind of gave, I let the cat out of the bag a little bit earlier. Wanted to let council know that currently on February 14th, at that council briefing, we will be reviewing the strategic plan operational plan. I actually plan on getting that out to you in the next week or so that you actually have time to look at it well in advance. It's approximately 4 dozen projects and initiatives that we've identified over the next 4+ year window, some of them actually carrying out to over a decade. But it's our take on the things we need to be doing as an organization, the projects and initiatives we need to be working on in order to further the priorities, goals, and objectives that you've all laid out. So look forward to that in your inbox in the next week or so. And then we also have, on that same one in February, we'll also be discussing micromobility follow-up with the city attorney, and then talking about some more changes that we are planning for the organization to be more responsive. With that being said, I see Council Member Stokes' hand raised.
Yeah, Mike, I was under the weather during the briefing. We discussed the ARPA funding, and are we going to review that in another briefing coming up before? Because if I remember correctly, like I said, I was pretty down and out, but I think there was some thought on possibly doing a staff thing for part of the funding, and then also part of the funding going. I just wanted to follow up on that if I remember that correctly, or if I'm in left field, because I was kind of hazy.
There was a consensus to move forward with the priority 1 that we had laid out, which was to use the first tranche of ARPA funding, which was a combination of both federal and distribution from City of Jacksonville, for a majority of capital projects and infrastructure projects that we have slated. The priority 2 projects were where we were looking to do a little bit more of a community impact. We actually, I believe, had suggested making some enhancements to the Carver Center and some of the infrastructure around that facility. Clearly, that one, I think, is a little more nebulous, and there was a consensus, I think, to come back and talk a little bit more about that priority 2 funding, which we would probably do later in the spring of this year. And that's, again, it's not a small dollar amount. That second year tranche is, again, between $8 and $9 million. If City of Jacksonville puts another round on the table, as they've indicated they will consider. So we're somewhere between $6 and $9 million for that second round. Not seeing any other hands raised. So perhaps we can jump down to committee assignment reports. I believe you all should have received a forwarded email from Councilmember Golding, who had attended the, was it Florida League of Cities, Sandy, that you had attended and provided some consolidated notes for you all to consider. I don't know if anybody else has any report outs that they would like to do. Mayor Hoffman.
Mine, not necessarily report out, but just two quick things. And one, thank you, Sandy, for putting that summary together. That was really interesting. And I wish I had been there to hear the actual presentations that those notes came from. So appreciate you doing that. You guys are going to see some more interviews come around for the pension board appointees. We've got some reappointments and some open spots coming. The pension board, it kind of fell through the cracks in terms of our new board interview and selection process, because not all of the seats on the pension board are council appointed. So we're working on refining that process a little bit more, that we would have kind of one round of interviews that would involve not only the city council, but would involve the pension board members themselves if they're interested, since some of the seats are appointed to the board by the board. So you'll see that come around, same as with our other interviews. If you're able to attend, they'll all be on Zoom, and we're working on a new set of questions because the prior set of questions really was so broad and covered all of the boards, where pension board questions can be a little more specific to financial management, investments, things like that. So just keep an eye out for that. And then also our legislative session starts this week, so that's terrifying. I know a lot of us are going over to Tallahassee for League of Cities lobby days. Our lobbyists have actually offered to set up either dinner on Tuesday night or lunch on Wednesday. And I just wanted to see if you all had a preference. I would think dinner on Tuesday night, just because Wednesday you could potentially be getting in the car and driving home. So, and they're going to set up some legislator meetings for us as well. Does anybody object to dinner on Tuesday? And it would not be mandatory, of course, but I think it's nice of them to set that up, and if as many of us could attend as possible. So all good with that?
What was the date, Chris?
Tuesday the something.
Tuesday the something.
Tuesday, February 8th, I believe.
Okay, I didn't see that.
Be February 8th, yeah. Good. All right, that's all I had.
I'm good with the Tuesday dinner. If anybody's going over tomorrow for the State of the State address, if anyone's going to be in Tallahassee, let me know. I'm going to be over there.
Councilor Golding?
I don't know if everybody gets the emails from the League of Cities, but they are doing Monday morning call-ins, which are really, really good. If you've not done those, I just want to recommend that you do that. It's a great opportunity to hear from the lobbyist with the League of Cities and get updates on where the bills stand, what's coming up in the coming week, that sort of thing. There was one this morning, and the one next week is going to be Tuesday because of the Martin Luther King holiday. So it'll be Tuesday at 9 a.m. And if you haven't done any of those call-ins, I would highly recommend it.
Any other comments from council before we close out the briefing? Just a reminder for everyone that on Wednesday evening, we've got the community open house to discuss the proposed charter amendment for creating an additional height incentive in the downtown business district. That'll start at 5 p.m. and the city will be broadcasting that. We've worked out with Jacob. I think we're going to have a portable device broadcasting for us. So we look forward to seeing you all there. And then we'll have our next regular council meeting next Tuesday in council chambers at 6 p.m. So with that, everybody have a great rest of the evening. And we'll see you Wednesday night. Bye.
Have a good night.